Finally, we are now moving into an era of gaming I am a lot more comfortable and familiar with, that being the 16-bit era. Believe it or not though, I have never played these WWF games before bar one. Surely these can't be as bad as the previous WWF games I have covered though, right? I mean, I've played a few shockers so far. You see, when I first started getting into gaming, it was this console, the SNES, that made me love gaming. But by the time I got into wrestling games, SmackDown was banging hard on the PS1, so I really had no reason to play these SNES games, and I never really wanted to, if I'm honest. But to keep the series rolling, I can't skip these, so let's see what they are all about. Here is the WWF games for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I hope you enjoy. Also, stay tuned until the end. I've got an idea I want to run by you guys before going ahead with it regarding the rest of the WWF/WWE games I'll be covering. First up is WWF Super WrestleMania, released in March of 1992. It was developed by Sculptured Software and published by LJN. You're greeted on the title screen by a jacked Hulk Hogan, and then you're on to the main menu. Not an awful lot to choose from here, which is one of my main gripes along with a few other things with this game. You only have the choice between one-on-one, tag team and Survivor Series match. We'll have a look at the one-on-one match type while I go over the controls, but first let's take a look at the game's roster. Yet again, not much to choose from, I'm afraid. Here we have Macho Man Randy Savage, The Undertaker, Hawk and Animal of the Legion of Doom, Ted DiBiase, Sid Justice, Typhoon and Earthquake of the Natural Disasters, Hulk Hogan and Jake the Snake Roberts. I do know the Sega Mega Drive had a slightly different roster, as most of these games did on each console port. Each console port had exclusive wrestlers, while both having Hogan, Savage and DiBiase. The Mega Drive would include the Ultimate Warrior, Papa Shango, IRS, the British Bulldog and Shawn Michaels. If you leave the cursor over a wrestler, you get to hear a 16-bit rendition of their theme song. But much like other games I've covered, some sound good while others sound absolutely terrible. Here's one thing that's crap. After choosing the wrestler you want to play as, the computer decides your opponent for you. Whose terrible idea was that? Before each match starts, you get a cutscene with Howard Finkel announcing the superstars to the ring. I say Howard Finkel because at the end of each match you see a card announcing the winner, which is clearly Howard Finkel, but actually in game I can't help but think he strikes an uncanny resemblance to Mean Gene Okerlund. What do you guys think? Now into the action. First off the bat, presentation wise it's definitely an upgrade from the previous WWF games we've seen on the NES. Each of the wrestlers' health bars are displayed at the top corners of the screen. There are fans in attendance too we can see, and who make noise and also respond when a move has been done. Commentators too outside the ring who move and look at each other from time to time. We even now have a referee in the ring who looks legit. Everything looks fantastic. There was really only one time where I got a bit confused though. I played a match between Savage and Jake the Snake Roberts and I couldn't tell them apart. They looked identical. But everyone else for the most part stands out well enough and can be easily identified. Now it's all fine and well having a game looking great, but we all know graphics is not what makes a game good. The controls and gameplay need to be on point too, and I can honestly say it's a really dull experience this game. Every single wrestler in this game shares the exact same moveset, so for the most part they may look different but they all play the exact same sadly. B button lands a kick, A button delivers a punch, X button is used for grappling and Y is used for running. While in a tie-up, if you mash either B, A, Y or X, you pull off a move corresponding to that button, whether it be a body slam, headbutt, Irish whip into the ropes or a suplex. You can also pull off moves while your opponent is grounded, B for an elbow drop, A for a stomp, Y for a flying elbow, and the X button is used for pinning your opponent or picking up your opponent depending on what section of their body you're standing over. You can also take the action out of the ring too, but you can only exit and enter the ring from the sides. I didn't know this the first time and tried to enter and back in from the front and eventually got counted out. The gameplay for me got boring really fast because of the lack of variety between each superstar. There aren't even any finishing moves in the game too, at least to break up the feeling of all wrestlers being the exact same to play as. Personally, it's not a game I'd recommend. The presentation is there graphically, which to me is appealing, but the lack of a season mode and all the wrestlers playing the exact same, it just got incredibly boring very fast, which we all know as gamers makes for a dull experience. Obviously I wasn't expecting a classic, but you'd think they'd pull something big out the bag for the first WWF game on the SNES, and at least make use of the 4 extra buttons the SNES controller had over the NES. I was going to go over the tag matches too, but I really couldn't be bothered. I doubt I'll be missing much anyway. Next! Now on to WWF Royal Rumble, released in June of 1993, developed by Sculptured Software and published by LJN. Straight from the start I already feel a great upgrade in style compared to the previous game, as members of the game's roster come flying onto the screen right at you. There are 4 options to choose from: one-on-one, tag team, triple tag team and Royal Rumble. Still no career mode, but hopefully the gameplay has improved. Let's have a look at one-on-one. There are sub-menus inside each match type for you to choose from: one fall, brawl and tournament mode. From here you choose the difficulty. Butcher me in the comments if you want, but I found the sweet spot for me to be difficulty free, and I'll get into my reasons for this shortly. Nice. Unlike the previous game, we now have the options to choose who our opponent is. You do however have the option for the CPU to choose for you if you like that, but if there isn't a career mode then I'd prefer to choose who I am facing. There are 12 superstars to choose from, 2 more over the previous game, and these include Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, Bret Hart, Tatanka, Crush, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Yokozuna, the narcissist Lex Luger and Ted DiBiase. A bio for each superstar can also be seen next to the superstar you are currently on. Now let's get into the action. For the most part the buttons are the same as the previous game to pull off strikes and grapple moves, but a few extra moves have been added due to finally incorporating the L and R shoulder buttons, which the previous game did not use. They have included a grapple bar which is displayed when either yourself or your opponent initiates a tie-up. Consider it more like a game of tug of war. You want to button mash either the A, B, X or Y or the shoulder buttons to pull off the desired grapple move. Once the bar is filled on your side, you'll pull the grapple move off successfully. The grapple system is something I feel is a great idea, but the execution could have done with a bit more polishing. It seemed really one-sided. Either I'd get a clear win when it came to grapples, or the CPU did. It never felt like there was much of a struggle as you'd expect when wrestlers tie up. Sometimes you'll tie up and nothing even happens, or you'll be stuck in an endless loop with neither of you gaining the momentum over each other, which is why I resulted in mainly sticking with punches and kicks, and also moves on the ground, as I felt this kept the game's speed at a decent pace. Plus, before I even changed the difficulty to make the game a slight bit easier, I was almost never able to pull off a grapple move successfully. I just couldn't find a happy medium with it whatsoever. One of my complaints about Super WrestleMania was that all the wrestlers felt the same, and to be honest, they do here in this game too. But they added something to totally make each wrestler feel slightly unique to one another: finishing moves. How you pull off a finishing move depends on which wrestler you're playing as. Firstly, you need to deplete your opponent's bar and then get into the desired position to be able to pull off the finishing move. For example, if you're The Undertaker, grapple your opponent and spam the R button. If you're Bret Hart, beat your opponent down to the ground and press the R button while standing near your opponent's feet to pull off the sharpshooter. It's the little details like adding finishing moves I can appreciate, and they make you feel good once pulled off. As I mentioned, the game doesn't have a story or career mode, but I think the various game modes on offer make up for this. The brawl mode is the same as one-on-one, but whoever has their health bar depleted first loses. It's no holds barred, so you can fight outside of the ring too without being counted out. There's also a chair here that can be used, the only weapon in the game, so make sure you get the first shot in with it because it can only be used once in a match. You also have tournament mode, which felt more like a slobber knocker match from the SmackDown games, but you start each new match with full health. It's just you going through the whole roster until you beat everyone. I was expecting it to be more like a King of the Ring style, with other opponents facing off in quarter-final, semi-final and then the finals match. But no, you have to beat everyone. You do however win the WWF title at the end and actually get to see it in the game, so I suppose that's pretty cool. You have tag team style matches too. The usual 2 tag teams facing off, and you can also take a tag team through the tournament mode too. Not much difference to your usual one-on-one style matches apart from more people participating in the match. Plus, there isn't even any tag teams in the game. The Quebecers, Steiner Brothers, Money Inc. Like, we have Ted DiBiase, so just include IRS so we can have at least one tag team to play as. But let's take a look at the main selling point of the game, and also where the game gets its name from: the Royal Rumble. Who didn't love a Royal Rumble match as a kid? 30 superstars coming in at timed intervals to battle it out for a chance at the WWF title at WrestleMania. How's this going to work though with only 12 superstars to choose from? As you guessed it, it's an absolute mess. The game can only handle 6 superstars in the ring at once, which is understandable, but they all come in pretty much right from the start, which leads to absolute madness. Ain't got a clue how to throw anyone out, and the majority of the time I was just getting battered about. Didn't finish it. Overall the gameplay is still a bit clunky, but I feel it's slightly more polished than the previous game. Even with the inclusion of the L and R buttons, every wrestler plays the exact same apart from having their own unique finishing move. All in though, I'd say it's pretty fun to play, and worth giving a shot if you haven't already. Next! WWF Raw was released in November of 1994, developed by Sculptured Software and published by LJN. This would be in fact the last WWF game LJN would have anything to do with. I'm hoping for this game to be a massive upgrade from the previous 2 games I've covered, because it will be the last traditional style WWF wrestling game I'll be playing for the system in this video, because if we all know what's coming after this one, yeah, not a good one. So I've got my fingers crossed for WWF Raw. Let's get into it. We have a fantastic opening sequence here that actually mimics the real life opening to Raw at the time pretty well if I'm honest, with the music on top too. On to the main menu now, and there is a great amount that can be selected here, but first we will take a look at the game's roster. There are 12 superstars to choose from. These are Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow, Razor Ramon, Lex Luger, Doink, Shawn Michaels, 1-2-3 Kid, Diesel, Owen Hart, and Luna Vachon. Luna Vachon has to be the most interesting superstar in the game. She was the first ever woman to be featured in a WWF game. Rest in peace Luna Vachon, you terrified me as a kid. Much like the previous game, you also get a nice biography at the side of their card, but on top of this, if you press the select button while on a card, it brings up the superstar's attributes like their speed, strength, stamina and weight. Now into the actual gameplay. It plays a lot like the previous game, although this time round they have went the extra mile and gave every wrestler their own moveset so they don't all feel the exact same. The tug of war like grappling system makes a return, but I must say for some reason I absolutely struggled with it in this one compared to the previous game. I wasn't the biggest fan of it in the Royal Rumble game, but I absolutely despise it in this one. You see, there was many times where I was smashing a face button, but despite this, the opponent always managed to pull a move off. I might just not understand the system at all, but I could swear there were moments I had the bar full on my side to only end up being on the receiving end of my opponent's grappling move. I'm just going to be honest and get this out of the way now. I really was not a fan of this game at all. Everything just seemed really off to me. I'd find it impossible sometimes to pull off something extremely easy like a punch or a kick. Even when I had the game's difficulty down to level 1, I still struggled with it. There's even a secret code for this game which allows you to edit a certain superstar's attribute on the Superstar Select screen. Even with this, I couldn't get a decent experience with the game. My wrestler would end up being either too slow, or as you can see here, too fast. It really is a shame because it was this one I was looking forward to playing the most. There was a lot I wanted to talk about, but actually playing the game became a chore really quick for me. They've added a whole new set of moves on top of the ones seen in the previous game. You're now able to pull off moves from the turnbuckle too. New Mega Move which allowed your superstar to pull off some insanely over the top moves. They have even added more match types while also including the ones seen in Royal Rumble game. On top of having one-on-one, tag team, triple tag and Royal Rumble matches with each of these match types having their own sub-menus like before, they also included the Bedlam match which is similar to a tag match but more like a tornado tag style with all superstars in the ring at once. Also a Raw Endurance match which is a lot like a Slobber Knocker match from the SmackDown games as you fight your way through the whole roster with one health bar. Like I said, I just wasn't a fan of it. I can appreciate the extra content while also including stuff from the previous games. An updated roster, new movesets, these are all good things about it, but the actual gameplay itself I really couldn't get a grip of. I'd love to hear your opinions of this, so let me know down in the comments. I may return to it one day, but I'd also urge anyone who hasn't played it to give it a go. Out of the 3 games I've covered so far, this one definitely packs the biggest punch in the content department. You never know, you might end up liking it. I just didn't this time round. Last one up is WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. It was released in November of 1995 for the SNES, developed by Sculptured Software and published by Acclaim. I have already covered this game when I've done my videos on WWF games for the PlayStation 1, so if you're looking for a more in-depth review of this game, I'd suggest watching that after this. This is going to be pretty quick. For those of you who did watch that video, you'll know I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I do like my wrestling games at times to be a bit over the top and arcadey, but on the level of, say, the early SmackDown games. WrestleMania, the arcade game, took this approach to a different level. It was far too over the top and fast paced for my liking, and seeing as this is the SNES version, I can't see how my opinion on this will change. For a start, it's an incredibly stripped back version given the console's limitations. I remember being confused by the roster in the PS1 version, having Doink instead of perhaps maybe say a Diesel, and Lex Luger wasn't even in the WWF when this game came out. In this version, the weird choice in characters to choose from is the least of your worries, because in this version there are only 6 wrestlers to choose from. 6. Did Bam Bam Bigelow and Yokozuna get removed because of hardware limitations? Most likely. But if that's the case, why not just keep them in and get rid of Doink and Luger? At least then it would be a lot more accurate for the time. At least we still have some heavy hitters here like Bret Hart, Undertaker, Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. Let's get into the action. It's basically the same from when I covered the PS1 version, incredibly over the top. I barely have a minute to think because the action is really fast paced and repetitive. Don't be expecting technical grappling moves, it basically plays like a standard fighting game. The aim here is to deplete your opponent's health bar and that's it. Each fight has 3 rounds, the first to win twice wins, it's that simple. Much like when I played the PS1 version, I just button mashed my way through it while also occasionally pulling off special character specific moves. The game follows the same path in its career modes as the PS1 game did. Intercontinental Championship mode and WWF World Wrestling Federation Championship mode. I played the Intercontinental Championship mode. Here the matches are split up into 3 blocks. The first 4 matches are your basic one-on-one. Your 5th and 6th match will be 2 versus 1, and the last match is a 3 versus 1. Like when I played the PS1 version, the first 4 fights are a walk in the park, but when it comes to 2v1, I just couldn't be bothered. The game does have moves you can pull off, but it's impossible because the game is that fast paced you don't have a second to think about what to do next. I got through these 2 handicap matches and when I got to 3 versus 1 I just turned it off. I've done it once and I swore I'd never do it again. Plus with the slowdown you get with this version too, it actually makes these match types unplayable. Look at this! So what, I now have to deal with 3 wrestlers kicking me in with a slowdown on top? How can I compete with this? And that brings me to the end of the video. All in, what can I say? I wasn't expecting any of these to be classics or anything. The one I enjoyed playing the most was Royal Rumble. However, if Raw played the exact same as how Royal Rumble did, I'd probably go with that. I really liked how the first 3 games I covered constantly improved on what the previous games had already done. Just a shame I couldn't grasp the Raw game as much as I'd like to. So here's the idea I wanted to run by you guys quickly. Now that I've covered every WWF game so far, we're now going to be moving on to games that actually feature somewhat of a career mode. I was wondering if you guys would be interested in me doing career mode videos with commentary for these games along with a review. I was thinking of perhaps dropping the review of said game then after uploading career mode videos. Let me know if that's something you'd want. Anyway, apart from that, like always, if you enjoyed this video please subscribe, it helps the channel grow and reach a wider audience. Also, if you like the videos, consider giving it a thumbs up. If not, then a thumbs down will do. It helps me know what I'm doing good and what I'm doing bad. As always, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!